Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Layla Moomin and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator with the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. Thank you for attending the third webinar in our 8-part empowerment series entitled CCSN's Remarkable Cancer Survivors Guide to Healing at the Level of the Body. We are pleased to welcome our presenter for the series, Dr. Rob Rutledge. He is a radiation oncologist based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, who specializes in breast, prostate, and pediatric cancers. He is also an associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie University and the CEO and chair of the Healing in Cancer Foundation, a registered charity that offers free educational videos, documentaries, and live webcasted seminars. In today's webinar, Dr. Rutledge will provide practical ways to unleash the body's healing potential through physical habits and techniques, done with an attitude of peace, love, and gratitude. At the end of the presentation, our speaker will answer your questions. However, at any time during the webinar, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. For those of you who have not attended an earlier webinar, the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network is an organization working with cancer patients and survivors to learn about health system complexities, connect with others to plan action, and act to promote best care and healthier survivorship. If you would like to learn more about CCSN, please visit our website at survivornet.ca. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available tomorrow on YouTube. In addition, the slides will be available on SlideShare. Links to both will be sent to the email you provided. Now I will turn things over to our presenter. Welcome, Dr. Rutledge.
Thank you, Layla, and what an incredible pleasure and honor to work with the Canadian Cancer Survivors Network and to see so many great spirits in one spot. Guys, you showed up today, you're showing up to your life and you're making a huge difference. That meta message that you want to get better has a profound influence. And I'm even seeing in a few chats to get things going around, how to work with anxiety, how to work with, the worry about COVID and immunity and so on. And really, because we humans are really holographic, if you make healing at one level, you will automatically have healing at the same level. And almost no matter what topic I'm going to talk about, it's going to have an influence at multiple levels. So really you can convert the teaching today into something that will empower your body, mind, and spirit for certain. So even though we're focusing our small level, our small lens at the level of the body, changing the soup in which cancer cells can grow or not grow, really this can have a profound influence. And you're going to hear why I believe in mind, body, and body, mind as well. And lastly, I want to talk about this paradox because it's very important. Very, very important point is that you bring the right attitude into your healing journey. And so I've been studying remarkable cancer survivors for 25. I've been reading about it for 30 years now. And what I want to kind of offer you is an oncologist perspective. And then as well, what I've read in the literature, and there's some really interesting books that are coming out. But the first book I read was called Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Dr. Bernie Siegel. And so Ivy League cancer surgeon, and he talked about his exceptional patients. And one of the attributes of his exceptional patients was their ability to accept their diagnosis. Now, when you hear the word accept, it's not like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to give in. I'm just going to let other people do the work. It's more like acceptance is the capacity to see the reality of the situation as it is. So that's your starting point, right? So you come into that space, you come into the kind of mental, spiritual, psychological space of being relaxed in this moment. And I first, I read about this in the 80s, and I knew Alistair Cunningham, and I knew people were talking about the acceptance piece, but I really didn't understand it until a dear friend of mine got a breast cancer, and a more aggressive breast cancer diagnosis in 2006. So she was a medical school classmate, had found a lump in her armpit, and immediately knew that she had a breast cancer diagnosis. By the time I chatted with her, she'd had the breast removed, the vascular surgery. She was due up for chemotherapy, radiation, and going for a cure, et cetera. And I was a bit, this is my dear friend from medical school, and I was a bit like, anxious, freaked out. And I got on the line with her, and she was so centered, so calm, so clear about what was happening to her. And I asked her about it, and she said, yeah, my friends think I'm giving up because I'm just like so solid, so at peace with this. And so she had to write this big email blast to all her friends to explain, the acceptance piece of this. And I'm just going to read a little bit from her email to her friends from our book, The Healing Circle. $20 at the website, 2 for $40. Just joking. Okay, guys. So what she talked about was that there's an acceptance piece, right? And what we're going to talk about is this kind of tension. She said, I suffered a couple of days of despair after the diagnosis. That's unusual. Most people are really, freaked out of their tree for probably a month or two to kind of come back home to themselves. So she was able to transition more quickly. She said, but since then, I've known that I'll be okay. Maybe not okay in the way that it would have been defined 5 weeks ago, but in a bigger sense. I felt that while I cannot be positive that I will beat this, I can be positive that I will have the courage to face what is ahead. I am positive that I will have the support from loved ones, the expertise from my doctors, and ultimately the grace from God to ensure that this turn in the road will not be a negative force in my life. And I believed all that and still believe that from deep within my soul. But in the past 2 weeks, something else has crept in. So here's the tension. Here's the paradox, right? So she's in this space of like acceptance. I'm starting to believe or want to believe that I will beat this in the conventional sense. I'm starting to demand it of myself and to ask it of God. There is a proportion of women who survive breast cancer my stage, so why not me? Anyways, I chatted with Karen, I know, 6 months ago. She's cancer-free 14 years later. I think she's cured of her cancer. I tell you her story, though, because it's like there's an acceptance piece, which is super important, but there's also the proactive piece. It's the tension of holding, it's an and both scenario, right? So to be at peace and still do the work. I think that's super important, to still do the work of whatever is best for you, empowering your body, mind, and spirit. And so today we're partly going to talk about what is the work at the level of the body, right? And done in a loving way. So that's the preamble, acceptance and proactivity. The tension, loving yourself as you are and growing psychologically, spiritually. You want to kind of extend yourself there. Okay, so I'm going to share screen. Okay, you're going on some of the slides here. Yeah. All right, so healing at the level of the body. So I'm going to just go over this again. Be clear about this in your mind. What is that you want to manifest? What is your intention? Maximizing your chance of recovery or longevity, or having a physically good outcome, right? So do that in the way that's best for you. We want to feel better emotionally. We're talking about anxiety and the worries of COVID and so on. So how is it that you can come home? How is it you can transition quickly like my friend Karen did in that situation? How is it you can be your best self? How is it you can live in your wise and compassionate brain? And then I'm thinking about, well, it's a quality of life issue as well. So whether you've got 2 years to go or 52 years or more to go, why not function at your highest level? Why not think most clearly? Why not, be your best self? And then purpose. This is part of the purpose, is we do these things so we can connect with those most important relationships. And lastly, you can see the cancer diagnosis an opportunity or a catalyst for psychological spiritual growth. You can see this as Earth School, and how is it that you want to grow? How is it you want to use the best of this? And that was Bernie Siegel's, from his original book in the 1980s. That was one of his main ideas: opportunity, catalyst for growth. Okay, so you can think about this in terms of what makes sense for you, and you don't have to go for everything. I also want to tell you, I told you a story of Karen because she did it all. She got the best of medical care. She had the big surgery, she had the chemotherapy, she had the radiation, she had the reconstruction, right? She took care of herself, went through the physical system, but she also changed her diet. She exercised, she took, stress reduction. So she did those things. And I just point to this idea that we can use science and intuition to guide us in terms of what are the ways that we need to empower ourselves. So nurturing spirit, settling in the mind. Okay, so I'm also taking my hat off to Kelly Turner, who wrote this book called Radical Remission. And those who know about it, it's essentially she interviewed people who have undergone what she called a radical remission, like spontaneous. She didn't like the word spontaneous because multiple people said it's not spontaneous. It's actually the people actually did some work in order to manifest the physical transformations. But she did this work and looked at the attributes of the remarkable cancer survivors, essentially. And here's the list that we have here. And you are there. Your number one point is all you guys taking control of your health. Like you're attending the seminar, you're watching this video, you're thinking about it, you're taking that next step, following your gut, an incredible amount of wisdom inside. So again, you listen to your gut, but you need to act as well. Radical change in diet. So I've kept diet off the list today because it's so important that we're taking it as a single webinar next time around. Quick one, use of herbs and supplements. There's no one herb or supplement. Therefore, I really just think that's a reflection of people taking control of their health. And then there's the emotional work, reaching out, connecting with others, having a strong reason to live. That's important. Deepening a spiritual connection. That doesn't have necessarily to do with religiosity. And then Kelly has said subsequently that as she's continued to interview these remarkable survivors, she's now seeing exercise as a consistent pattern. And again, I think exercise has a profound influence on your health, but it also is a marker of your willingness to take care of yourself. It's like a message to the universe that says, I want to get stronger. I want to grow. And I'm just going to stop share here for a second. I want to say as well that I believe in evolutionary biology. And what we're trying to do is biohack this physical organism that we've been given, right? You biohack your brain and you feed it and you take care of it in a way that your brain functions best. In the same way, you biohack your body and you do what you need to do, exercise, diet, et cetera, for your body to be strongest. And I also think of that from an evolutionary perspective. So we spend, tens of thousands of years in tribes on the Serengeti, and it was the tribes that functioned best were the tribes that passed your genetics on to others. And so if you were contributing to your tribe, you were exercising, you were active, you're sending these kind of molecules of life to the rest of your body. Essentially, from an evolutionary perspective, if you're moving, if you're exercising, if you're active, then you are telling your body that you're really important to your tribe. You're tapping into that kind of imprint that says, I got to keep on going. I have people that are, I'm responsible for helping. And so therefore your body keeps giving this message of, I need to live, I need to live, I need to live. And that's part of what you're doing is biohacking right now. Okay, so those are the key factors. So what I want you to take away from today. So the takeaway from today is, and this is what the remarkable cancer survivors do. 1, so you unleash that healing potential. So you've been blessed with, through evolution, through consciousness, through however you want to say this, a capacity within your body to heal itself, or at least create healing. And so you need to do the work to take care of your body. Look at it like the baby that needs some work. And I'm always going to point you to the kind of 2 wings of the bird. And one wing of the bird is the expertise, the knowledge. And I like to go to experts. I like to know what other people think and know and learn from them. You get that logical, scientific perspective. And then the other wing of the bird is your intuition saying, yes, this feels good for you. And because there's something inside of you that wants to push you towards healing, something in you wants you to, manifest in the best way possible. And I think that's miraculous by itself, but there's something there. So you trust your intuition to get there. Lastly, this is the key point here. We need to look at our bodies as this amazing vehicle that allows us to connect with others, that allows us to reach out, reach a hand, give a hug, receive a hug. It's the vehicle in which you experience your life. And so the sense of gratitude, you're bringing the kind of higher level consciousness into the body experience. So you love your body, appreciate your body. And when you look at your body that way, then you're not denying yourself when you go on a diet and not eat the fatty cookies or the pop or the unhealthy stuff. It's no longer denial. It's more like you love your body so much that you want to do that naturally for it. Okay, so how do we do this? We're going to do a setting of the intention exercise. I'm going to talk about the body-mind connection, and then I'm going to go through the other aspects of the physical nurturing your body part of this and give you some advice as to how you might do this in a way that works for you. Okay, so I'm really keen on people being clear about how they want to manifest their life. And so I do this in a few ways, right? As a ritual. First thing in the morning, I was meditating and setting my intention first thing this morning, doing it going into difficult situations and doing it throughout the day when need be. It's like you're setting up the program, tapping into whatever is the highest within you to actually guide you during this. And so it's important to set the intention. So think about it. What is it you want as the end result? If you're going into that meeting, if you're having the relationship questions, if you're going into your medical appointment, like, what do you ultimately want? So you want good care. You want to have harmonious relationships. You want to, act with integrity so you can feel good about yourself, right? So how is it you want to be in the world? Like, how is it you want to manifest? What are your highest values? And let's focus there as a ritual. And then ultimately, you also want to think about a grander purpose. The body's here to serve a grander purpose, right? So what is it that we want? Why do we want our bodies to be healthy? And then that puts us in the space of, okay, well, I need to take care of my body in order to manifest on that side. Okay, so I'm going to stop share and we'll do a short meditation relaxation. So I want people to take a strong posture. This is part of what I call body up, right? We're not just minds controlling our bodies. It's one unit. Body, mind, and spirit is one thing together, right? And so when you take that strong stance, when you take that kind of noble posture, when you sit up with a sense of dignity, you're actually sending a message to your brain, if you just believe in the brain, but you're also sending a message to your subconscious and your mind and your spirit. It's like, I have this life right now. I can do something with my life right now. I can learn, I can grow, I can love in my life right now. It's like you're saying, okay, I'm taking my seat. I'm taking my strength. I'm taking my power with this. So nice posture that feels good for you. Participate in this exercise, again, in the way that you prefer. So start with bringing your consciousness into your body, right? You do that by paying attention to the physicality, the solidity of your body. So you bring your attention to your feet, a sense of being grounded to the earth. Bring your attention to your hands because there's a life force energy that's in and around your hands. Right? So again, you're claiming your physicality because that physicality is producing that energy. And when you bring your consciousness into it, you're actually amplifying your life force energy. Bring your attention to your sitting bones where your body is touching the chair. And again, it's that sense of being rooted, like a visualization of the trunk of a tree into the earth. Bring your attention to your backbone now. And again, it's that sense of solid, strong backbone. That's the proactivity part of this. You are human and you have this physical body. So you bring your attention and your strength into whatever you're going to do. And then there's also the heart, the area of the heart energy. It is the receiver and transmitter of love. It has the kind of energetic quality. In fact, the consciousness works through the heart level. That's actually where one of your major brains is. And let's just warm up the heart area. So I'm going to just take you through this visualization then. Warm up your heart with a sense of caring and compassion, right? So it's like, bring to mind somebody that you deeply love, or your pet, or at a different time in your life when you really felt connected, whether you were a young child or maybe your kids were young or you're very close with somebody. And as you do that, allow your heart to warm. It's almost like you're sending that warm, healing energy to that person or that pet. And there's a sense of glowing. Bring your mind now, think of somebody who in your life is suffering in some way or form. So again, it's this natural feeling of opening your heart to somebody near you or far from you, you know is suffering, and you naturally open your heart. So you're energizing the physical and energetic body, sending that love to them, wishing them healing. May they be free from suffering. Expand that energy. So you're like a being of light. Expand that energy to the other people that are dear to you, your family and friends and cherished colleagues. Wish them well, really wish them well. You're an energetic being of light, starting with this level of the body, sending that loving energy. Send that sense of gratitude and peace to everybody on the call, everybody watching this video, in now or in time. May they find healing. May they be free from suffering. Really wish them well. Send that again to everybody, everywhere who's suffering in some way or form. Anybody, anywhere. So you limitless being of light, starting with the physical and then the energetic body. Now recognize that as you're doing that, you're actually healing your own body because you're a being of light, because it's expanding, soothing, washing over all of your tissues. You're actually energizing yourself right now. You actually direct it towards a physical ailment or a psychological, emotional issue, an anxiety, a depression. Into your relationships, all originating in your body. And then say that for yourself. What is it that you want to manifest? What's most important to you? How do you want to live in this world? Why do you want your body to be healthy? What's your highest purpose? And the body is the grounding for all that. And let go of any sense of visualization now, coming back home. Sense of connection, feet on the floor connected with earth, strong spine. Next breath, release your breath and open your mind to a sense of transformation, healing, energy, love. That's part of your humanness as well. And recognize that your good human heart connects the two, that kind of grounded earth pragmatic approach and possibly healing and transformation. Very, 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 very nice. Yeah. Okay, so just stand up very slowly on the spot. Just keep that sense of mindfulness. You can even rub your tummy if you want, or put a hand on your heart, maybe Rub your heart or rub your belly. Keep the mindfulness. And then just a little stretch as we sit down again. You know, in time of COVID and in time of Zoom video conferences and video calls, et cetera, one of the things I'm going to tell and suggest to you is try to stretch. Try to move your body every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even for a 2-minute stretch. Look for opportunities to stand up, talk on the phone. Look for opportunities to stand up and watch your computer screen. Look for opportunities not to look at a screen. Okay, back to our slides. All right, so we talked about mind body, right? When you think those beautiful, lovely thoughts, it literally changes the neurochemistry, the chemicals that then flush through the body. So you have that capacity for your mind, your attitude, your higher consciousness to have a profound influence on the physicality. But it goes both ways. It's a two-way street, and you're not just your mind, and you're not just your body, and you're not just your spirit, you're everything. It's all the above. Okay, so the nervous system is not just what's in your skull. The nervous system, you know, you have, I know it's like millions of nerves around your gut, right? So when you get a gut reaction, you're actually getting information from your gut. There's also called interoception. I'll let you know about that later, where the feelings within your body send messages up to your brain. So when you have a gut reaction and intuition, it is coming from the nerves in your gut. There's also nerves around the heart, I was saying. There's some very interesting science now to say that there's a brain surrounding the heart. And in fact, the heart taps into the truth of the consciousness faster than your brain tissue, right? So one system sending messages both ways. The other example I give there is, you know, in the middle of the night and you wake up, ding, and your mind is catastrophizing and you can't get back to sleep. You can actually practice a relaxation technique, right? Allowing the body to relax sends a signal to your brain to say, I'm safe, I'm okay, I can relax more, and it will promote the chance to get back to sleep then. So we're gonna talk about sleep a fair amount later on. So there's body up as well. And lastly, in fact, I'm gonna get you to do this right now, the power pose. If you can, if you want to, if you're able, stand up, put your hands on your hips, you know, like that, and raise your chest a little bit. This is the Wonder Woman stance, right? I'm going to hold you here in this Wonder Woman stance for 1 minute. What's happening is your body is sending a signal up to the brain saying, I'm strong, I'm in control. And that releases testosterone, right? Gives you more kind of strength or maybe a little bit of aggression. It also decreases cortisol, which is the molecule that's released during a stress reaction. So we feel more confident and strong to do what we need to do. And it improves confidence. And I did this once just before a television interview when I was feeling nervous, right? Because you never know what the interviewer is going to ask. And I stood in the wings of the television studio and I did the Wonder Woman stance. Luckily, nobody was watching me. And I really felt like when I got to the interview itself that I sat up more straight. I was listening closely to the interviewer. I really could speak from the heart. I really thought I gave a better interview. And I thought it was partly because of that kind of sense of confidence. So, all right, guys. So maybe, you know, in your physician's office, right? You know, waiting for that long time for the physician to come in, stand up in the power pose, get yourself stronger some way. All right. All right. So I really could rant for a long time on this idea. There's a meta message here, and then there's the real strong, hard science about doing exercise. And then you might hear movement instead of exercise. You may hear activity instead of exercise. But our bodies were essentially designed to exercise, that when we were exercising, we were actually hunting and gathering, et cetera, et cetera. And our brains pay much more attention when we're exercising. It means that we're alive and we're important to the tribe. And you want to do that, trick your body into giving you that. Okay, so what am I talking about when I say you need to exercise, you need to move? Well, ultimately, and I recognize that people are at different stages in their cancer journey, right? So some people could be in the midst of treatment, and therefore they're pretty weak. Some people could be, more in the palliative care phase in which their bodies are very weak. Other people could be in recovery, or they weren't very fit prior to a cancer diagnosis. So we're all different. Ultimately, what is incredible is that our body adapts. We get stronger with time. And if you're able, you want to slowly make that change. You slowly work yourself up to 30 minutes a day, 5+ days per week of moderate intensity, meaning you can say a sentence at a time while you're exercising, but not a paragraph and not just one word type thing. So you're working your way up towards this, this goal. And I'd say like more is better, up to, like an hour a day type thing. Now, the American College of Sports Medicine has said now we know that strength training is an important component of the exercise. And so when we flex those muscles, when we use those muscles, we release molecules of joy. It stimulates pro-social activity, and I'll talk about that. But essentially, when we get stronger, we get fitter, and it's a message to our body that we want to live. So, and this can be all home-based as well. You don't have to necessarily buy a gym membership. You could add flexibility and coordination, like a racket sport, or making sure you do a little bit of yoga with these type of things. But really, from my perspective, do what feels good. I'd always say find an expert, do the research, chat with your family doctor as to what you can do, what you can't do, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, why? There's the metaphysical, which I've talked about, meta message to your body to say, I want to get stronger. And, the meta message is the molecules of living from our evolutionary phase. We haven't proven that yet, but I certainly believe that. But here's what we do know, right? When we do that, when we move our bodies, we definitely have more energy. So it's a paradox, right? So you're feeling tired, you're feeling crappy. Even if you're kind of bedbound, to get up out of your bed and stretch your body and do some grip strength, et cetera, helps with mood, helps with bowel movements, helps with, general energy, it helps with function. So people can actually, in the last 6-8 weeks of their lives, actually get a little bit stronger in different ways, right? So there's this opportunity to have more energy. So the paradox is, when you're feeling tired, is to actually add some exercise to your day in a way that feels right for you, right? If you're super exhausted, obviously you need to keep that in balance. We know for certain that people who are exercising get through their treatments better. It decreases the inflammation. I'm going to talk about that shortly. So we definitely know that. Because the body adapts, therefore you have better function, better quality of life. Did I say thinking clearly, better sleep? No, actually this, oh my gosh. So one of the things I forgot to add here is that when you exercise, let me just stop share for a second. So when you exercise, you actually release brain-derived growth factor. So it's a molecule within your brain that allows you to learn more easily. It's almost as if you're on the move, it's like your body saying, oh, you better memorize what's happening, because you want to memorize where the food is, where the hunt is, et cetera, et cetera. So the movement by itself primes the mind to actually learn more. So brain-derived growth factor is one of the molecules. They did an experiment in Australia of people who were essentially couch potatoes, i.e. they weren't going to any type of exercise. So they gave them a free membership. And the people who did this program on average went to the gym 3 times per week. So they weren't doing a whole bunch, but they had this free membership. They started working out a little bit more, and they measured their brain's at baseline, they measure their brains, I think it was 8 weeks or 10 weeks later by an MRI scan, and looked to certain regions that were actually growing, kind of thickening. And it has to do with the left prefrontal lobe. So you're actually thickening the wise and compassionate part of your brain by simply exercising. So they didn't do anything else, but the exercise actually started to prime the growth of the brain, of the connections in that region. So yeah, so it helps all those other things. You have more energy, you have more sleep, your brain function is going to improve with time. Okay, so better function, better quality of life, partly because you're thinking more clearly. Probably number one in terms of that side. Better sleep, we're going to talk about that shortly. Now, exercise also, what I say, releases the happy hormones, right? So, other than an antidepressant, in fact, I think exercise is pretty well on par with an antidepressant for helping people who have depression, right? So if we can get people to exercise, get the motivation up enough, then you release those happy hormones. The other one that I found really interesting, so Kelly McGonigal, Stanford psychologist, writes a fantastic book. She recently wrote a book on movement and the joy of movement. So she was saying that the research is when you're contracting your core muscles, kind of the big muscles, that those muscles are actually releasing molecules or hormones into the system that percolate up into your brain, which gives you the feeling of joy. And it also gives you motivation to reach out to connect with other people. Right? I find that fascinating that the muscles are like an endocrine organ helping you feel better. You definitely get better immune function, and it happens in lots of different ways. One of this is the anti-inflammation effect that I'm about to talk about, but even moving gets the immune cells into the bloodstream better. And moving. I was doing like a YouTube watching, and there was an Australian program which they're actually getting people to exercise during chemotherapy, and that was allowing the immune function to increase, but also getting the chemotherapy into the tumor more effectively. So interesting that it can better tolerate the treatments. Immune function is a little bit tricky because you have to create all the conditions in which your immune system is most likely to be at its optimum, and one of them is to exercise. Inflammation. Really what happens for a lot of people is that either the cancer or treatments or whatever pre-existing conditions like arthritis causes inflammation in the body, and the inflammatory molecules cause fatigue, right? So you get a bad sunburn on your skin, you'll feel a little bit of fatigue because of the inflammation of the tissue. Radiation causes fatigue because, again, the tissue gets a little bit irritated, releases those chemicals of inflammation, and those chemicals tell the brain, settle down. Same way if you get a cold or a flu, the immune system is releasing those molecules, telling your brain to rest, essentially. Don't spend your energy doing other things. You need to rest right now. And lastly, changing the soup. Now, how this happens, hard to know, but there's actually increased survival rates. For instance, breast cancer, prostate cancer, endometrial cancer. There's certain cancers that if you exercise, you're more likely to be alive 10 years from now, especially if you're eating a good diet. And we're talking about the anti-inflammatory diet next week as well. All right, I want to tell a story because, I can talk to you about the incredible scientific benefits of exercise, but this is kind of a meta perspective. So Jeff Eaton, who you see here, is a remarkable cancer survivor. He's the head of Young Adult Cancer Canada, diagnosed with an aggressive blood cancer at age 23, went through chemotherapy and then what they call a transplant, which is essentially super high dose chemo, which wipes out the cancer cells, hopefully, but also wipes out the rest of the cells that produce the cells and the immune system, et cetera, et cetera. And so then the people have to essentially go in isolation because they're at real risk of getting infections during that first 40 days. Well, Jeff got through his transplant. They sent him home to St. John's, Newfoundland, and then he got super sick. He got an infection in the line, one of his lines, and he got very, very, very close to dying. The ICU, they were, 1% chance of living, and something got him through this incredible process. But essentially, he was in a coma for 3 weeks after getting super, super sick. And so he woke up, he had ICU psychosis. He was scared of going back to sleep. He didn't know where he was. They had to reassure him. He slowly got better, but he also got cabin fever and just said, forget it, I need to get home. So he slowly recovered. And I'm telling you this story because when he woke up from his coma 3-4 weeks later, he kind of brushed his hand against his abdomen and all the muscles were essentially melted away. Like he could hardly lift his hand up to shake his hand. He couldn't even brush his teeth. His parents had to brush his teeth. It was like he was totally wiped out. And when he went home, he started on a regimen where at first he was just almost sitting up and then he would pull himself up to sitting position. So it's like a movement of, I don't know, an inch or so. And then as the days went on, slowly he let down the head of his bed further. And so he's slowly doing these push-ups, sit-ups, and slowly he got himself up to the side of the bed. And like 3 weeks after he got home, he's actually able to make a 5-step journey to the couch that was beside his bed. So that was like a momentous. And then he kind of collapsed into the couch and he couldn't get up, right? Because he was too weak and so on. But that was the anniversary of their fundraising event, was essentially this 5-step walk. Now I tell you that story because I've heard it in different forms of people so darn weak, but they get themselves onto some type of exercise regimen. And when you can walk to your chair, like you're sending a meta message to your body. When you walk to the corner of the room a few days later, again, it's this message to your spirit. You walk to the edge of the driveway, you walk to the corner of the street. Each day, this progress and that moment of, shortness of breath or nausea or feeling unwell, but you push through it, is that message of, I want to get better. I want to survive. I want to live, right? So you're taking all this kind of pent up anguish, stress, frustration, anger, and focusing it in a way that your body can hear and process and transform, right? And so Jeff did it. He over 3 weeks went from essentially being bedbound flat to being able to take 5 steps. And the meta message is, let's get better, right? So when you do that, remember, bring to consciousness that you're doing that to take care of yourself. You're sending that message of live to your body when you exercise. You don't have to go to a gym to do it. There's lots of creative ways. In fact, one of the creative ways is that Kelly McGonigal suggested is play like a song, either like a YouTube music video or some song that you really like, and just dance to it. Whatever that dance is, whatever the swing is, you're talking 3-4 minutes at a time. You can, eventually create a little bit more of a playlist, but just start something. If you feel like you just don't have the capacity to move, to take that first, walk down the street or whatever it is that is best for you, start with just dancing in your home with your computer, having fun. Okay, so that's the how this is it, because this is a long-term thing. How are you going to make this happen over the years and decades that you potentially have to go? So you want to make it fun, right? You don't have to go to the gym or run just because that you've been told to do just that. There are other ways to go at it. I'd say make it social. When I have one of my patients is a nurse at the hospital, and she has this contract with 3 of her friends. Essentially, each of them will take her exercising once per week. And so they'll show up at her house and they'll drag her to the gym or the power walk or whatever it is they do with that person. So unless she's in a coma, she definitely is going to go for that exercise. Another one is if you have a buddy to exercise with, you may not feel like you want to exercise. They may not want to feel like they want to exercise, but you're not talking to each other. And so you show up for the other guy. I'm doing it for them. And ultimately you get the job done. And I'd say just create a machine. This should go beyond contemplation, beyond choice. It just has to happen. You just have to integrate that into your day, whether it's walking to work, whether it's first thing in the morning or cutting home from work, or whatever it is that makes you make this a part of your day. All right. Do the work. Send the meta message. I want to live. All right. So let's all stand up while I'm saying this one. So I'm saying to you, sitting is the new smoking. And so I highly recommend you find some way to do your computer work standing up, right? So have some set up in your house somehow so that you can actually stand while you type and read emails and so on. So I think that's number one. Another one is you see on the right-hand side of the picture there, this guy's talking on the cell phone. He's standing up. So I have a habit or a ritual that says whenever I'm on the phone, I'm automatically going to stand up, right? So I don't need to usually be sitting while I'm talking. And so it's another way, standing up every 10 minutes. Set your alarm every hour to stand up, stretch. You may want to work on your posture while you're doing these things. Okay, so plant-based diet, extremely important in terms of, empowering the body. We're going to have a whole session next time around on diet. Bring your questions. Okay, maintaining a reasonable weight. Couple advice around this. So if you have physical activity, if you follow the diet that's right for you, and especially a plant-based diet, you can make a huge difference in terms of finding a weight that's better for your body. And there's lots of different advice around this one, but essentially, it's to try to cut back on the sugary, unhealthy stuff. So either don't go to the grocery store and buy that stuff, or if it's in your house, put it in a place where you can't see it and it's more inconvenient. So it's the balance of those two things. But more important than the weight actually is your fitness level. So I would take the overweight person who is active over the kind of regular weight person who's inactive, right? So don't worry, throw away the scale. The number doesn't matter as much as, if possible, get your body in that stronger state, have the healthy diet, right? So exercise and so on. The last one is, this is not about guilt. This is about love. It's like, I love my body. I want my body to be healthy. And so slowly making that transition and being self-compassionate with yourself. So I'm not going to belabor this one, and we'll focus on sleep and relaxation in those last two activities. So from the sleep side, now there's some really good science now. I just finished reading and integrating more of this information into this talk. Sleep is important, first of all, in terms of your health, in terms of your mental health, in terms of your ability to concentrate, in terms of the molecules, the sugar levels. Right. You're your better self if you can get the adequate amount of sleep. Now, it's interesting because we're going to talk about, first of all, some of the myths that can kind of help you get over this, but then there are kind of levels of what you might do in order to get yourself onto a sleep program or sleep habits that really get you back into a much better night's sleep. And so they get progressively more aggressive, and progressively you need more expertise there. So I'll try to explain each of these in turn, but levels of sleep. First of all, you're not going to die from a bad night's sleep. If you go without sleep, you're not going to die from having no sleep, right? Even though it might feel that way sometimes. Okay, so some sleep-related myths. I can't function on less than 8 hours of sleep. Well, I mean, I'm sure there have been nights where you didn't have a full 8 hours of sleep, and then the next day, sure, you couldn't think as clearly, or you didn't have as much energy, et cetera, but you're still able to do some things and still function at a certain level. And so just to say, oh, I need 8 hours, it hasn't happened, I can't function, this kind of black or white thinking isn't quite right. So that's the first idea. Secondly, there's a whole pattern of sleep where you actually are supposed to wake up in the middle of the night. Now, some of us, we wake up briefly, we get back to sleep, but waking up by itself is not a bad thing, right? It happens. You go through in 1, 2, 3, then the REM, rapid eye movement levels, and then you go back up and you kind of wake up at that point, and you go through the cycles again. You go through that 3, 4, 5 times at nighttime. So it's okay to wake up in the middle of the night. It's the normal thing. If I'm tired, I should go to bed earlier and earlier, spend more time in bed. Well, it's not the amount of time in bed. It's actually the amount of time asleep. It's what they call the sleep quality type thing. So if you're more and more tired and you're running into sleep deprivation, then you need to do the other things, not necessarily just spend more time in your bed. Insomnia is going to harm me. Well, not in the short term. You don't want to go on that for years and years, because there are some biochemical changes that happen with insomnia. And again, back to the first one, if I can't sleep, it's going to ruin my day. I'll have to cancel everything. Well, again, what I'm trying to point to is sometimes there's intrusive thoughts there that are kind of contributing to the problem, and having a little bit more like, I'm just going to do the best in this circumstance. That type of attitude promotes the better night's sleep, and not to get yourself so wound up. Okay, so this is everybody should be doing this sleep hygiene part of the presentation. Right, there are certain stimulants, right? The big fatty meal just before bedtime, or caffeine or chocolate too late, will stimulate your brain, right? So the half-life of caffeine is 8 hours. I'd suggest you drink your coffee in the morning if you really want to, later in the day if you have to. I mean, each person is different. Some people can tolerate caffeine and still sleep, but get your caffeine in the morning. Exercise earlier, so at least a couple hours prior to going to sleep, right? So again, not stimulating yourself too late in the day. Supper as well. It's really interesting. So during sleep, and I want to kind of shut that one down for a second and just kind of try to explain this. So the food is in your stomach, and then the body kind of pulls the kind of energetic system into helping to digest the food. There's also a system within the brain that cleanses the cells and the kind of nutrients and molecules around the cells during sleep. And in fact, the brain cells supposedly shrink during sleep so that the pulsation from that system can push the lymphatic fluids, the cerebrospinal fluids, out through the system and kind of drain it from the body. So it's almost like it has its own lymphatic system, and it works best if you're not full and trying to digest your food at the same time. So that's the sleeping at night and not on a full gut scenario. But fascinating science around how the cells actually get a little bit smaller, which allows the clearing of those fluids around the brain cells. Next. So they also say, in terms of your biochemistry, better to fast, i.e. not eat for 14 hours. Now, my metabolism won't allow me to do that, but thinking of having your supper at 6 p.m. and not eating your breakfast till 8 a.m. type thing, again, has some benefits in terms of the sugars and so on. Drinking before bedtime, even though it might allow you to get to sleep a little bit earlier, ultimately you get a bounce back at about 4 or 5 hours into it. Your sleep actually gets much worse. So alcohol is not helpful in terms of sleep. This one is super important though. So because our screens typically have the blue light, it's actually stimulating your brain to think that it's daytime, essentially. So sure, you can get your little blue light filter over on your reading glasses or those type of things. But really, I think it's super important to really notch down the stimulants especially the news, especially the negative stuff, especially the scrolling through social media stuff. You really want to turn that off, allow your brain to settle. In fact, I think it's important to kind of mimic the sun going down. So things are getting darker and darker and darker as the hours go on, and you're creating the conditions. So less lighting, not the big blast of the bathroom vanity, you know, just before you're going to sleep. And ultimately, nice cool room is associated then with sleep. They say don't look at the clock because you'll just get yourself wound up. You're going to wake up when you wake up, regardless of what the clock says. So it's okay to have the clock in the room. Stay in the dark at night if possible. Like do the Helen Keller kind of walking to the bathroom, feeling how you need to get and go to the bathroom without kind of stimulating through the light side of things. Interestingness, wake up before the alarm goes off. So you get yourself into a routine, and this is the discipline, right? You're trying to get it going and having the discipline to get to bed early so that when the alarm clock goes off, like you've already woken up, right? So you might say, well, I gotta start my commute at 8 a.m. It means that I need to be awake by 7 a.m., but you want to set it up such that you automatically wake up before 7 a.m. And that then requires the discipline of going to bed early. Stimulus control has to do with this idea that you're training your brain to, like, through reinforcement, to say, my bed is the place for sleep, right? When I go into my bed, my body relaxes. And anything that goes against that, you don't want to do anything that can contribute to that. You trick yourself or train yourself to do that, then you do, right? And this is one where I'd say you want to get the expert involved, sleep study. So you start with your bedtime routine, going earlier, only go to bed when you're sleepy, and then you get up when you're, if you're not asleep. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night, then you get up and do something boring. If you're not, if you're rolling over in your bed, you don't want to associate rolling over in your bed with your bed. You want to associate sleeping with your bed, right? So if you can't get to sleep within 20 or 30 minutes, at any point you get up. And then when you're sleepy again, you go back to bed again. Wake up at the same time, no naps. So I believe in naps, except for when you're doing these various reconditionings. You don't allow yourself to nap, so you get very sleepy. You associate your bed with sleepiness. Okay, folks, another quick little stretch while we're here. I got about maybe 5-7 more minutes to go. Little stretch, standing up. All right, napping. I believe in napping. It works well for me. I feel more clear-minded after having a nap. There's some good science that shows your blood pressure goes down, your sugars get better. You get a better night's sleep that night. You're more awake the next day if you nap, but you have to keep your naps short, 15, 20 minutes usually, and definitely before 5 p.m. Okay, there's some more aggressive types of sleep reconditioning. One's called sleep restriction. Essentially, you get yourself onto the schedule by getting up exactly the same time every morning. And then the bedtime is calculated according to how much you slept the night before. It's very uncomfortable to go this through for a few weeks, but it definitely can really improve your long-term outcomes. I want to take you through a couple of examples of reframing. So the idea is that oftentimes our thoughts are causing us more anxiety, more stress, and we don't get as good a night's sleep. And so based on David Byrne's book, the idea is we can change our thinking so we feel better, less anxious, and therefore can get a better night's sleep, right? So, and there's a 3-column technique that you'll see here. The situation is just the truth of what's happening, and you're mindful of how you're thinking, especially if it's distressing or automated thinking. The second column is you think about how those thoughts make you feel and start to use your logic against it. And ultimately, in the third column, you reframe using your wisdom and your compassion. So it's not just positive thinking, it's actually thinking bigger and being encouraging of yourself. So the reality of the situation is you might be in the middle of the night, you're waking up and you're not falling back asleep. So you're kind of stuck more in the wakeful stage, right? So that's happened. That's the truth. Then on top of that truth, you have this thought. So you're adding extra unnecessary suffering. This is BS. I'll never get a good night's sleep. Insomnia is ruining my life. This is totally unfair to get cancer. And so you kind of catastrophize. And if you talk to yourself that way, what happens? What emotions happen? You get this anger, frustration, which releases the stress reaction. The body becomes more anxious. It's not helpful. How is it exaggerated? Well, as soon as you kind of label it, you're just capturing that as 100% of what it is. I'll never get a good night's sleep. Well, you're not getting a good night's sleep tonight, but that doesn't mean never. Insomnia is ruining your life completely. There's nothing good in your life. It's completely ruined. It's totally unfair. And so you can see how the exaggerations are happening. So then how is it that you talk to yourself in a way that's encouraging and looks at a bigger perspective and so on? So for instance, you might say, yeah, this is frustrating. It is tough to go through this situation, but it doesn't help to get myself all worked up. This is not helping me. I can get through this. It's going to be a tough night tonight, maybe tomorrow, but I'll probably sleep better tomorrow night. And I can train myself. I can learn. I can figure out what happened tonight and get stronger with time, right? So it's also the quality of my voice as I explain that. The last thing that we forget in the Western culture is meditation, relaxation. And it feeds right off the sleep stuff, because you can actually do those audio tapes or those practices before you go to bed, which will relax you. Or in the middle of the night is an opportunity to say, well, this is boring, but I can practice a relaxation technique and get stronger and stronger at that. And I'm going to cover this topic more when we talk about stress. But I just want to kind of put you in this idea that it doesn't necessarily have to be meditation. It's any activity in which you're consciously bringing your attention back and back and back and back to some point of focus, right? And so yoga is an excellent example where you're following the motions and you're also watching your breath and how your body feels. There's audio and video of a body scan in which you visualize each part of the body relaxing in turn. You can do mindful walking, so it doesn't have to be sitting. It can be a bit more active, like qigong, in which you're moving the energy and so on. But essentially, you need activity in which you recognize when your mind starts to think or get caught up in either the past or the future. You bring your attention back, and it's the muscle of bringing your attention back that gets stronger and stronger. So better attention, better being in the moment. And I just want to tell you just a little bit of the neural benefits as we practice that. So we get better at being aware of our body. That's called interoception, self-awareness. And when we do that, we become more empathetic of others, which is interesting. It's the part of our brain that reads emotions in other people, also reads what's happening within our body, because we're having mirror neurons off them. When you meditate, you get better memory because you're actually growing cells in your hippocampus. And you're settling down the kind of nervous part of your brain. The anxious nervous part of your brain gets settled when you actually practice a relaxation technique. And then lastly, this prefrontal cortex, it's the executive function. It is the best attention, creativity, positivity. It's like a lot of very beneficial stuff as you kind of ramp up those nerves. The balance between the left side and the right side creates the mood. So the more left-sided activation, which is increased in meditation, the better your mood is, generally speaking. You can also start to tap into the mechanism of tapping into greater consciousness. And lastly, when we meditate, the telomeres are these little bits at the end of the chromosomes. And as we're feeling stressed, we actually eat away at our tissue throughout our bodies. If we practice relaxation, if you practice meditation, there's less stress, less inflammation, less eating away at our own chromosomes. So we protect that length there. there's just a little slide of people who meditate over the decades. They maintain the thickness in their frontal lobes, right? So that's the blue dots, as opposed to the rest of the people who would get the known basic thinning of the brain. The physiological benefits. So when we practice meditation, we settle down the stress system. So the cortisol isn't as high in our body. Our immune function is definitely higher. For instance, when you get a flu shot, you get more antibodies. The immune system works better in those who are meditating, and helps in many, many conditions, including recovering from operations. So pain, diabetes, blood pressures, like you name it, you're settling down your system when you're practicing relaxation. And as I said, we're going to focus on that part of it and the kind of stress part of it. But just to say, this is another way to kind of nurture and love your body and empower your body. When we're in that space, then it has an automatic benefit in terms of how our brains work. We're better able to pay attention. Our natural compassion and empathy comes out and reduces a lot of these issues, including anxiety, when we practice the meditation side of it. Lastly, I just want to offer, just this is the last slide now, just want to offer you my meditation experience, because a lot of people, has been helpful for them. So when I'm doing mindful meditation, I bring my attention to my breath. And within about 3 seconds of starting, I'm starting to think about what has happened. What's happened yesterday, what I have to do, et cetera, et cetera. And by bringing my attention back to my breathing. And then I'm off thinking about something else. And I've been meditating for 20 years. And it's that same process of chattering mind, bringing my attention back, chattering mind, bringing my attention back. I still feel much calmer, much clearer thinking, much more compassionate, much more relaxed in the days that I meditate. And yet there's the chattering mind. I don't have to fight against that. So it's not like in meditation, you're going to have a quiet mind. It's that you get better and better at coming back home to your best self. So I think I'm finished there. I'm just going to flash that next slide. And we can have questions, or I can go into the chat. So Layla, are there chat questions there that you might, I'll show this slide later on, chat questions that you might be able to read for me?
Yes, we have one here. So someone said, the clearing of the lymphatic system at night is of interest to me. I have secondary lymphedema. What things other than not having a heavy meal would help? I tend to start a 12 to 14 hour fast by 6 p.m. Is this helping my lymphatic system?
Yeah, so the lymphatic system of lymphedema is kind of separate from the lymphatic system within the brain itself. And just for everybody's kind of knowledge, in addition to kind of having arteries that push the blood out and then veins that pull the blood back, there's a whole separate other set of kind of tubes and pathways that pull the water off the tissue, or the water, the liquids around the cells. And that's the lymphatic system. And people who get lymphedema, usually they have either a surgery that kind of cuts the lymphatic channels, or a radiation that causes some scarring, or both, and that causes swelling of the arm. Now, yeah, so lymphedema, teaching is a whole other subject by itself, but that's a separate issue from this idea of allowing our brains to actually have the rest and the energy to actually allow the flushing of the tissues. And I think it's why we sleep as well, right? The brain cells need to kind of clear the metabolites of their work. And so the sleep allows that pathway to work most efficiently. I'm sorry if I haven't answered the question, but I'm not sure there's much more I can add to that one.
So I think that's all we have for typed questions in the chat, but I suspect people probably want to ask their own questions personally. So we'll just do a quick outro and then move on to the questions after the recording.
Yeah.
So just to conclude the formal part of the presentation, for those, thank you everyone so much for attending our webinar today. We would like to again thank Dr. Rutledge and his organization, the Healing in Cancer Foundation, for collaborating with us to produce this series. This is one of many webinars we have scheduled for 2020, and all our previous webinars are accessible on demand through our website at survivornet.ca. We have another webinar scheduled for next week, and it's about cancer rehabilitation with Dr. Jennifer Jones, and registration for that will be going out soon, so hopefully a lot of you will be able to attend that as well. And the next webinar in this series will be in another 2 weeks from now, on October 28th. So we hope to see you again, and thank you so much for joining us.